Hi everybody, and welcome back to our PHP login tutorial part 3. When we had left off in part 2, we had just submitted our fake user in the registration form, and it brought us here to the activate form.php page. Now what it would normally do when we submitted the registration is bring us here and send the user an email with the activation code he needs to activate it. But when we entered the user, we entered a fake email address, so we're not going to be able to look in our email to get that code. Let's just open up our PHP MyAdmin, go into our login taught tutorial database, and look in the temp reg folder here, and there we go. There's the MeWe guide submitted in part 2, and here's the confirmation code we're going to need to enter into that form. I'm just going to copy that. Thank you very much. And go back to the activate form and paste it in. Okay, now let's take a look at our activation form.php. We have our pretty standard include function, the start of a session, the token we talked about earlier, the basic HTML, the reg box, and a little thank you message saying it was successful, and the submit activation form. It's going to be posted to activate.php. It's going to it has a submit input named activate. It has an input named activate code, which is this here, and our hidden token as we always do. So let's just submit this form right now. And thank you for activating the account. Your account was activated successfully. So what it does is activate form to the activate.php. Let's take a look at our activate.php. Okay, taking a look at our activate.php page, we have our standard start session, and checking the token like we always do. I created a variable called success and set it to 0. I will set it to 1 if the form activates correctly. So let's carry on here. We then do a select all from the temp reg database according to the access code they submitted. If we get a result, then that's good. We take all the information, his username, his password, his email, and join it, and everything we want to put into the users table. But first we have to do a select of the users table, and we're going to search the usernames for the username to make sure that that username is not already in use. If it is, you see this if here, we're going to display that user is already in use, and we're going to send them back to redo the registration again. But that shouldn't happen. And if he's not in the table, then we're just going to move on into inserting all his user information from the temp reg table and putting it into the users. And remember that these have to be in order. So if your username has to be with username, password has to be with password. Okay, and then of course once we got his information in the users table, we're going to have to delete his information from the temp reg, and that's what this is, delete from temp reg, where username is equal to user. Okay, and then because it was successful, I set success to 1. Have success set to 0 here, which doesn't really matter, but that else is the else from this if here. So if confirmation code was wrong, it'll stay set as 0, and then we do our standard HMTL here, our reg box that we usually have. Then if successful, it's going to display this message here, thank you for activating your account, and a link to go to the login. If it is unsuccessful, activation failed, please check your email again and retype the code with a little link to send them back to the activate form. Now because it was successful, let's go back to our login and take a look here at our login.php. Okay, we've already looked at our login.php, but we'll briefly go over it again. Our div with our login box, our standard form with the username, password, and the login button, and then our standard hidden token to check the form, and a link to register we can sign up, and a link to I forgot my password. We'll deal with that later in the admin section. And let's just log the guy in. I believe we called him Mimi, and the password was Mimi as well. Okay, so he logs in. We'll get rid of that. Okay, and you see the submission is done through do login, so we're going to go to our PHP do login page. This is another pretty standard, straightforward PHP include function. Our standard HMTL start session that we always do. Check to see if the token was submitted like we always do. The token hasn't been submitted. Your request has expired. Go back, please try again. Okay. And then here I did a destroy session because we're using the session here. Check for form validation. I'm going to use another session later on, so I just destroyed that session. That's how you end a session destroy. Okay. I'm going to take the username and the password from the post. We're going to do our escape string of both the username and the password. Except to get the actual password, the password has to be called password, but the one saved in the database, if you remember, is in MD5 encryption, as you see here from Mimi. So we have to put our password back into MD5, and that's what that is here. It's taking the password that was posted and converting it into an MD5, and then we're going to check the users table where the username is equal to the username you typed in, and the password is equal to the password you typed in. Okay, and if that is successful, we're going to pull out his username, his user ID from the table, his username, if he's banned, and his user level. Here we just got a quick thing. If banned is greater than 0, if that means he was banned. We'll talk more about the banning system later on. That's just going to redirect him to the ban page, which tells him, hey, you've been banned. You need to do something about that. If he hasn't been banned, we're going to start a session. In the session, we're going to store his user ID, his username, his user level, and then we're going to move him on to the landing page, or whatever page you want him to first see after he logs in. I just call it a landing page, and exit that. Okay. If the password was wrong, so if up here fails, we were checking in his user in the users table, and we have the wrong username or password. It's going to hit this else. I'm going to say you typed the wrong username or password, and a link back to the login to try again. As you can see, we had no problem logging in. So now let's take a look at the landing page, which is landing.php. Okay, the landing page is pretty simple. As you can see, we're going to include our database functions, our functions page, and the first thing I do is I start a session, and I check if is session, check to see if there is an active session with the user ID. If there is, I pull the user ID, the username, and the user level from stored in the session to variables. So there's now a variable called user ID, a variable called username, and a variable called user level. If there's not an active session, it means it's not logged in. We're going to kick them back to the index page. Okay, and then we can go back down to our standard HMTL. Again, some box in the blue there. Welcome to the landing page. And here it says username is whatever his username is. That's the variable username. So this way, your username is Mimi. User level is whatever his user level is. Your user level is 1. That's the variables we took from the session, so we didn't have to pass it in a post. We passed all those variables in a session because he's logged in now. We have them stored in the session. We can use some of the variables we stored in that session. And you can see down here it's got a link to the change of password, which we'll talk about in the next video. And a link. Let's go back to the index page and a link to log out. And what you don't see here is this little if here. If user level greater than 5, there would have been a link to the admin page, which is something else we're going to talk about in the next video, but you don't see it because the user we created only had the default user level of 1, so he's not going to be able to go do any admin stuff. Well, that's it for now, and we come back, we're going to talk about how the user recovers his password and a little bit about the admin section. Thanks a lot. We'll see you again in part 4. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to click on the like button, join my channel, or leave a comment. Thanks for watching.